I'm Robbie London. I was one of the executive producers on Sonic Underground, and I also wrote the title song, which is an accomplishment of particular pride for me. We felt we needed a completely new approach, and we really got the idea of wanting to incorporate music and making it sort of a music-driven show, which we had not done with the first two Sonic series. So we concocted this idea of the band and of Sonic Underground.
Everything's recharged.
There'd been certainly a precedent of some shows having great success. I think the one that influenced us the most, frankly, was Alvin and the Chipmunks, which we had produced for a while, and was a hugely, hugely successful show, and it had a song in every show. And while the tone was different, the tone of the series was a different kind of tone, we still thought, why not take this formula of a song and the fact that the stars are a band and make it a little darker and a little more rock-oriented.
Never, never give up. Never give up the fight. Never, never give up. Never give up the fight.
We had a core development team that consisted of Andy Hayward, Mike Maliani, a staff writer named Phil Harnage, and me. And the four of us would get together and bounce ideas around. The germ of the idea would often come from Andy, to be honest, of what series to do next. The idea of doing a Sonic series with a band and doing music may have come from Andy. Very, very well probably did come from Andy. And then we'd all get together and just throw around ideas for an origin story and what the lore would be, what the backstory, who the characters would be, how we were going to structure it. And a lot of this we'd do in meetings. And then oftentimes Phil Harnage would go off and write the Bible, what we would call a series Bible, which is a very extensive document kind of describing all the characters, the tone of the series. It's basically an instruction manual to writers. So if a writer was going to write a series, you would hand him this document called the Bible, and that would give the writer the information they needed to structure a story and to write a script. And then we'd often do a pilot script, because that's what really fleshes out the concepts of the Bible. The Bible can be a little abstract until you really see it come to life. And simultaneously, we'd be creating the art and the designs.
Triplets born, the throne awaits. A seer warns of a deadly fate. Give up your children, separate. Bide your time, lie in wait.
The way we choose songs is, at least title songs for series, is we have several composers submit audition songs on spec. And so I just got mine thrown into the pile without anybody knowing it was mine. And I was usually one of those people making the decision, but I found a way to abstain in this case because I really wanted it to just compete fairly with the other submissions. And it was picked. It was chosen, and that was a real, very, very gratifying to me. I'm probably the only songwriter in the world that was delighted when I finally saw Sonic Underground show up as a song on Napster. The fact that people were actually online wanting to trade my song, to me, since I wasn't making my living as a songwriter, it was a real thrill for me to see my song being stolen on Napster. The title Sonic Underground we really liked a lot because it sort of conjured up like the Velvet Underground, or it had the feeling of a band, and it had kind of a double meaning that also fit very much the plot of the story and the sort of overall what we would call the series franchise, which simply means the story of the series was about these characters having to be literally, in the underground. But at the same time, it really sounded like a band name too. It sounded like very much like a band name. So I didn't think of that title. I can't take credit for it, but we all really latched onto the title right away. Yeah, I think it was Andy Hayward that got the idea to use Jaleel. He was huge as Urkel during this time. I mean, he was just a big, big star in ABC, and we knew we were going to pitch the show to ABC, the original show, and we thought the idea of packaging Jaleel in that would make it more appealing, and certainly it was. The wonderful thing was Jaleel turned out to be the antithesis of what I described as celebrities whose voices don't carry. He was a fantastic voice actor. His voice was wonderful. But more than that, he was just personally a gem to work with. We really all bonded with Jalil. He was so gracious and bright, professional, not a snob bone in his body, but he wasn't really a singer. And so we had to find a way to sort of transition that and deal with that, which is done very commonly, by the way. There's nothing unusual when you have actors that don't sing and you need a song, especially in animation when they're not on screen. So what would happen is Pic's first version of the song would have him singing, because he's a great singer. And he would do that because he was available and he didn't have to pay himself. To my knowledge, he didn't have to pay himself. And so he'd do the demos, we'd approve the songs, make sure everybody was happy with what the song was. And then for the official version, it was part of Pic's job to go out and contract real singers to go out and actually sing these as close to the voice of Jalil that the singers could get. So that was sort of part of Pic's job description, was to go deal with that. But there was always that first version of the song where he sang it, and he would do overdubs and things like that. He would do lots of voices. He's a great harmony singer. When you're producing a series such as Sonic Underground, you never really know how many seasons you're going to get. In other words, you've completely finished the scripts on the first season before the show's even gone on the air. So it's very rare in animation for you to end something because you don't know if you're going to order more or do more. I mean, it's just you're sort of cutting off your own nose. If you write an ending on episode 26 and then a miracle happens and somebody wants another 26, you've ended it. So there was really never any thought given to writing sort of a finale episode. I'm hard-pressed to think of any animated series where they've had a final episode or a finale that way because of the production situation. I really loved all three of the Sonic series. I mean, they were amongst my favorite series of the many that we did at Deke, and I was probably involved with 40 or 50 series at Deke, and certainly the Sonics all stand out for me. But I have a particular affinity for Sonic Underground simply because of the song.
Sonic Underground, Sonic Underground. They made a vow their mother will be found. Sonic Underground.
Music, of course, was a huge part of Sonic Underground. It was really a music-driven series, and so there was a lot more attention paid to music on that series.
Triplets born, the throne awaits. A seer warns of a deadly fate. Give up your children, separate. Bide your time, lie in wait.
We start off with the main title song, which I mentioned that I wrote, and that was the first piece of music that we had. And then the underscore, which is the sort of the instrumental cues throughout the story that you hear when music in the background, sort of background music, I guess would be the way to call it. A lot of those were derived from the melodies that I had written in the main title song. That's sort of a typical paradigm in an animated series, is you take a main title song, which you hope will be sort of an oral hook. That's A-U-R-A-L, hook. That viewers will sort of grab on and they'll hear and they'll listen and they'll sort of, you want a catchy melody and you hope the melody is catchy, and then you take that melody and you reinforce it constantly throughout the background music in a very subtle way. So it's almost subliminal, I think, in many ways, whereas viewers don't even realize they're hearing that melody in a minor key or in 3/4 time or whatever. Variations on a theme, if you will. Then, of course, there were songs.
Let's do it to it. 1, 2, 3. Let's do it to it. Let's show them who's the boss of the place. Let's do it to it. And put the parts flat on the face.
Well, we made a decision. We thought one of the fun things to do would be to basically encompass a super wide variety of genres of music, like every style we could think of that we thought would be fun for kids, from doo-wop to Beach Boys to heavy metal to whatever we could think of as a style. Our thought was, let's try and incorporate this.
You have to learn to take a chance. You never know what you might be missing in life. Could be something you really like. You must learn to take a chance.
We worked with a composer named Mike Piccirillo, a.k.a. Pick. We all knew him as Pick. And he was fantastic in that way because we would give him the scripts. We would make sure the writers specified what the genre was. And sometimes I'd pick up the phone as well and just talk to Pick about it.
At the point I was working, there were no storyboards yet. We were way ahead of that, so that they could storyboard around my song. So we were working from scripts. The writers usually said in the script, at least, not always, but at least maybe a third of the time they would say the song should say something about blah, blah, whatever the lesson was, whatever the moral was.
We need to be free like a nomad roaming mystic lands. Oh, freedom is a golden bird that lets us fly. And if someone tries to take that away, we will stand and fight.
One of the things about songs for other media, like songs in movies, songs in Broadway plays, I think the best of them are universal and aren't, while the lyrical content will further the story, they're not specific to the story. In other words, you don't mention names of the characters, you don't mention locations, you don't mention things that are so specific, but that song only applies to those people, those characters. I mean, obviously there's exceptions, but I think the general rule when you're writing those kinds of songs is to try to make the songs as universal as you can and try to make the lyrics generic enough so if you were to hear them out of context, it would just sound like a great song that had something to say about a human emotion. And yet, when you put it in the context of the show, it fits into that story. And so I think that was one of the things Pick always tried to do with his lyrics in the song.
I'm so glad I found my home. I've been walking through this world alone, wondering where I fit in, where do I belong? Now a miracle's happened to me. I found my home.
Typically on Sonic Underground, I would read the script. We'll say that takes, half hour, an hour. Would get an idea for a song. The first thing you do is try to decide on the tempo. Then you want to test your tempo actually and make sure it actually is going to work exactly down to about a minute or a minute. I think we had about a minute, 15 seconds. Once I have my tempo, I actually record a click, and then I pick whatever I feel is the predominant instrument. Usually it would be a keyboard or a guitar. That's kind of like thinking along the lines of which guy in the band actually knows this song all the way through. And if it's a guitar-driven song, I would probably play it on guitar, and I would play it against that click. And I would play it from the front to the end just as if I was performing it. And once I had a performance down that I liked, then I would do the drums next, and then I would add the bass and the other instruments, whatever it took. All of that might take 3 hours. Then I would start working on my lyrics, and that might take a couple hours. And, I'm singing and writing as I'm going to save time, So every night I would sit in there at 9 o'clock, start reading, and by the time 5 a.m. rolled around, there was another song in existence.
I wish I could go faster. I really wish I was the fastest thing alive.
Whereas most pop songs start with verse, chorus, like that, I kind of developed my own technique where, since I only have a minute to work with, I want to try to get as much of the chorus in as many times as possible. So I start with the chorus always. I start with the chorus, do one verse, and then wrap up with as much chorus as I can still get, depending on the tempo of the song. Sometimes it's only a half chorus, that last chorus. But that's probably the biggest difference, is that they're very straight to the point. There's not a lot of time to build and here, 1 minute later, here comes what I'm really trying to say.
I'm looking for someone. Have you got 411? I'm searching everywhere for this special lady. Looking for someone. Do you have 411? Please help me if you can. Stop my lonely waiting.
It is gratifying when somebody writes to you and says, hey, that song, meant a lot to me. I remember it when, they'll say, like, I remember that song when I was 11 years old and I watched that show every day. Or I remember that song when I was 16 years old and I was having a bad time. And, So it's like any performer, you want to get that feedback, And And I don't go seeking it, but when it comes, it's nice. It's gratifying.
Nothing's quite as beautiful as the laughter of a child or the wonder inside every little smile.
I just love music. That's a real passion of mine, and particularly genre music and the idea of doing all these different styles. I love doing that, and I'm not just into the sort of style of the day. I'm sort of familiar and enamored of many styles of music. And so it was fun for me to take a very active role with Pick in that.
Deke gave me tremendous amount of freedom. They did not control the project in any kind of iron-fisted way. They gave me lots of freedom to go musically wherever I wanted, and they encouraged it, as a matter of fact. I hope you can hear how much fun and how much joy is in the drums and in the guitars, and tried to make it like a real rock band, rocking out.
Never give up the fight. No matter how tough it gets for us, I know we can make it through. As long as we keep standing tall, working together. Go ahead and throw it your best shot. Try anything you want to. Nothing's gonna make us believe we can make it better.
Triplets born, the throne awaits. A seer warns of a deadly fate. Give up your children, separate. Bide your time, lie in wait. Sonic Underground, Sonic Underground. They made a vow their mother will be found. The children grow, learn what's right. Leaders of the freedom fight. They seek their mother, she knows they do. Is it time if she only knew? Will the prophecy come true? Sonic Underground, Sonic Underground.
I long for my children, but I have to wait. To act too soon could seal their fate.
They made a vow their mother will be found. Sonic Underground.
To do this, Shani.
Got you, Uncle Chuck. If I don't bust through that force field, Robotnik will put him around every factory. Not to worry, been practicing, Unc. Gotta do it to it. See ya! this cool or what?
Then he'll deliver the hedgehogs to us. Bark like a dog. Ah, loyalty. You've got to love it.
That's them! Freeze, Latour! Ah! I'll have stopped him.
Can I pull the lever this time, Sleet? Can I? Can I? I don't think I like this plan.
Manic, look out!
What is it with you and potholes, bro? You never get enough of them. Come on, you guys, how many have I hit? 38.